Welcome, listeners. Welcome to Kyle and Cody's Cult. Actually, welcome, listeners. Welcome to Kyle and Curtis's Cult Cinema Cast this week. So we had some stuff shifting around. Curtis is on the show next week. This week, Cody will be on next week for the review we told you we'd be doing last week. So that's just how that's turning out. So, happy Pride Month, everyone. We're doing 2 LGBT films this month. We're doing Can't Stop the Music this week, and then what is it called? Brokeback Mountain next week. So both of which I've already watched, so that'll be fun. Yeah, Can't Stop the Music is a 1980 movie, which is a vehicle for the Village People, the famous disco group behind YMCA, Macho Man.
Iconic.
Yep, iconic, in the Navy. Only YMCA appears in this movie, though, so... But, I mean, Village People's a good band, so... The songs are mostly good. Didn't really have one that I really disliked at all, did I? No. I mean, I guess the one at the beginning was kind of boring, but that wasn't sung by them too much, I don't think. Double check.
I don't think so either. I did not check it either, but
It was listed here.
overall,
here
though, I'd say the musical compositions were some of the best.
Yeah, no, the opening song is "The Sound of the City" by David London. So that's one of the few songs that aren't done by them. They also have a song by the Ritchie Family, which is a group. They do "Give Me a Break" in this, which is a pretty good song. I like them. And then you get Samantha, which is one more David London song, and everything else is by the Village People. So YMCA's in it. They also got the songs "I Love You to Death," "Liberation," "Magic Night," "Milkshake," and "Can't Stop the Music," the title track. Oh, David London is a pseudonym for rock singer Dennis Fergie Friedrichsen, who was the lead singer for several popular rock bands in the 1980s. He was in Toto. Yeah, this was a 1980 film that actually appeared on the very first Razzies, and swept. It's won worst screenplay and worst picture, beating Xanadu, which is the big one. Which I don't know. I think I haven't seen Xanadu, but I believe it aged a little more poorly. The big reason this was so big is I think the acting's not great all around. It's like all right, but it's not like anything special. And then also this comes after the disco boom, and this is like coming out during the disco decline. Oh, that's a fun
unfortunate
word.
Timing.
The disco decline. That's a nice book name.
Got a nice ring to it.
Yeah, Disco Decline. Yeah, so it was just bad timing more than anything. I think that was what contributed to a lot of the bad reviews at the time anyway. I don't know so much now. It's kind of got like a cult following now because, again, disco's... I don't know if you'd say come back, but it's not like reviled at all anymore. People like it. You're allowed to like disco nowadays. It's also had like the benefit of time where like we weeded out all the bad disco and just remembered the good disco. So yeah, this stars a lineup of the Village, not the original, close to the original lineup. Bring this up one more time. I'll list off the because the Village People's had like a good variation in lineup. This is fairly similar to the original. This is the 1979 to 1980 lineup. So this is in a brief period where the iconic frontman is Victor Willis had left the band. Actually during pre-production, so they had to replace him with Ray Simpson, who became lead singer for a little bit. But most of the hits are there. We got Felipe Rose, Alex Brealey, Glenn Hughes, and David Hodo are pretty common members of the team. And that's, it's currently a 6-man thing. and Randy Jones in it. But other than that, it's mostly the original lineup. They just have Ray Simpson being the cop in this. Actually, it's kind of set. I think that kind of reflects why the lead singer of the Village People, ironically, at this point in time, isn't much of like a big facet of the movie. He's kind of a secondary character, which I thought was a little weird. But now that I'm like going over it, yeah, that makes sense that he's not the big character. The one who gets the most lines is probably Felipe, with maybe Glenn Hughes. Felipe's the Native American member, and then Glenn Hughes maybe gets the second most. He's the leather man, and then they get like a few. Each of them get like a few lines after that. This film stars Steve Guttenberg, who kind of sucks. I mean, Steve Guttenberg just kind of sucks. I don't know. I just got that impression off him. I didn't hate him or anything.
I was trying to remember what else he acted in because he definitely seemed familiar, but I just could not figure out what he was known
Yeah, we can
from.
find out.
I'm doing a little IMDb dive at the moment.
Yeah, he's in Police Academy, Three Men and a Baby, Three Men and a Little Lady. I think that's a Three Men and a Baby sequel.
Ah, I bet you it was Short Circuit. I bet you that's what
Yep.
triggered it.
Yep.
Maybe Police Academy 2. I think I've seen that.
80s, 90s actor. He plays like a producer. He plays essentially like the Village People's producer in this. Which I mean, the plot of this is it's a fictionalized account of the creation of the Village People band. It's not terribly accurate to the story. It's just like a very fictionalized account. It doesn't really star the Village People. They're just the band that this guy gathers around. Steve Moonberg's character. What's his character's name?
Jack or
Jack.
something?
Yep, Jack. His character Jack kind of like gathers around him. Most of the members of the band are friends of the female lead of the movie, Valerie Perrine as Samantha Simpson, who's a hotshot model, or like a retired hotshot model. I mean, retired for a model. She's like maybe late 30s, maybe. Let's see. Oh, she's 43. Oh, yeah, so she's 37 in real life when this movie's made. Was she uh, is she Lois Lane? Oh no,
From
she's
Superman?
no. She's that, yeah, in the movie Superman, the 1978 and 80 Superman 2. No, she plays Luther's lady sidekick, I think.
Okay.
No, I thought that was wrong because I would have. I don't know that actor. I don't know that actor's name off the top of my head, but I would have recognized her. I think Paul Sand. Yeah, Paul Sand. Oh yeah. So a lot of the Village People are just friends of Samantha, and she gathers a bunch of them, and then they do some initiations to like round out the numbers, which they recruit the Leatherman and I think the construction worker. No, they recruit the GI is the other guy they recruit. This is how they refer to the guys in the Village People, by the way. I'm sorry if that's actually not me being bad with names. I don't think they actually give the names too much, and that's how you refer to the members of the band in different periods because they all get a costume. So,
Did they ever change then what the costumes were? Because I don't know too
oh
much
yeah,
about the Village People. But like, so like for instance, say if the cowboy left the band, would they bring in another cowboy, or would it be like a new?
if you look over like the Village People, you can go to Wikipedia and find the lineup. Especially early on, there was a good bunch of variations in what they dressed as. Like Felipe and yeah, Felipe has always had the Native American costume, but like Victor Willis in like the first 4 years of the band is like listed as like cop, admiral, athlete, gigolo, nondescript. So like they would switch out costumes a good bit, and yeah, as sometimes they'd have multiple guys, and usually they'd replace the member. I think there's maybe like a couple instances of oh yeah, occasionally Victor Willis will be the admiral later, an admiral there later on. The GI characters, sometimes a sailor, and that switches back and forth.
Okay.
And sometimes there's more than there's like more than 5 or 6 members, so that changes a bit things. Usually they stick to 6, though, it seems like 6 or 7. The original lineup, I think, is 8, but that's before they had like nailed down the costumes a lot. But yeah, so but yeah, Felipe Rose is the iconic Native American. Alex Brealey, the iconic GI sailor. Glenn Hughes, iconic Leatherman. He replaced a guy who was the biker. David Hodo is our construction worker in this case, and then Randy Jones is our cowboy. So the other big actor who's in this is a pre-transition Caitlyn Jenner in her film debut. This was after like about 4 years after she had like placed her like record breaking Olympics and like decathlon wins. So this is a good 30 years before her public transition. So, and she plays a character named Ron White. And yeah, because of that, sometimes pronouns make it confused. But I'm gonna try to keep those. We're gonna try to keep those as best as we can. Shouldn't be too hard to keep them straight. We'll refer to the in movie character as he, just to keep that straight. But anyway, so yeah, that's something interesting. She doesn't appear in. I think she's only ever been in 2 movies. This, and then she was in Jack and Jill, which is another, which is just a bad Adam Sandler movie, which also swept
Yeah, I
the
was gonna say.
Razzies. Yeah, I think that was probably post transition though. I forget what year all that happened, but or like that we knew that she could have been doing. I don't know. I don't know her whole history. All I know is that she's trying to run for Congress or like senator in California as a Republican, which I'm sure won't backfire on her at all if she succeeds. I should say. I don't. I think that's she still needs to like primary and stuff. But anyway, we'll move on. Movies directed by Nancy Walker of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. This is her only feature film credit. She does a bunch of like TV episodes here and there, though. But yeah, that's the big things. Yeah, and it did also get some nods at the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, but though it won for acting in that. Steve Gutenberg won Worst Actor, and Caitlyn Jenner won Worst Actor. Stinkers, it was nominated for Worst Picture, Worst Screenplay, and Worst Sense of Direction. So Worst Director. That's a weird way of putting that. Also, they nominated Milkshake for Worst Song. I guess it's one of the weaker of the songs. And although that's probably a better case than the Golden Raspberries nominated Can't Stop the Music, which that's a good song. You can take that and shove it somewhere.
I agree.
Caitlyn Jenner also gets a worst actor. They don't have gets a worst actor nomination. Not as a supporting actor. They don't have a supporting actor. They have a supporting act. That's weird. They have a supporting actress category in this year, but not a worst supporting actor this year. But Valerie, Perrine, and Marilyn Sokol get worst actress nods, or or it just they considered Caitlyn to be the lead actor in the movie, which I mean Gutenberg's the lead actor, so I don't get that. I'll just check. I'll make sure there's not like a. That's a weird oversight. Okay, so yeah, no, I guess the Wikipedia is weird here. It's not. Okay, I think the Wikipedia page is just wrong cuz she's not nominated for any acting things. That though that year they were giving all the worst actor awards for to jazz singer actors because they remade The Jazz Singer for some fucking reason that year. That's a rough year. That's tells you how big the Disco Backlash was. Is that this beat out a um goddamn Jazz Singer remake. And I checked, yeah, this Jazz Singer remakes does still have blackface in it. So why?
Wowza.
Yeah, in 1980. So yeah, this is so yeah, it's got really bad marks on it's 4.2 on IMDb, which is kind of fair. Which is I guess all right. 7% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty criminally low. They must be drawing some from the old reviews because this wasn't nearly as bad as I had maybe feared.
Yeah, I because I didn't know very much at all about it until you sent it to me to watch, and I glanced over a couple of reviews and it had pretty bad scores. And the main kind of grief that I got from other people, and I could definitely see when I watched it, was just the length versus content and plot was kind of the only thing. Otherwise, it seemed all right.
Yeah, no, yeah, you could probably shave 10 minutes off this movie if you really tried, at least. Yeah, and the acting's not anything special in any points. Like very few professional actors in this really. And like Steve Gutenberg is the one professional actor, so yeah, that's kind of working against it. No, I think we'll get into it now. But
Mhm.
I think okay, one thing to note is like this is made in 1980, so they can't at all reference the fact that anyone in this band is gay, which most of them are. The Leatherman apparently is not, if I am remembering correctly, but most of them are, and a lot of Village People songs are like famous gay anthems. I think "Go West" being one is like a reference to go like San Diego or San Francisco, and like because that's where people were more accepting of LGBT people back in the day. But I think this does have some of that. I think this does have some strong subtext to it. If you are looking for some of that, we'll get into it in the movie. But I think you're not going to be entirely disappointed if you watch this in the modern day. You just got to understand that, like, hey, it's the 1980s. They couldn't really get away with shit. But I think the subtext is definitely there. So yeah, great, nice little choice. I was worried because I was worried I was gonna have to call Cody and just tell him he was right and that I should have just watched something else because I fought to get this movie onto the schedule, and we ended up compromising. So I would have been if this movie would have made me miserable. That would have been a funny thing that I would have had to explain to Cody. Anyway, our movie opens at a record store where Jack, our main character, is called to the front counter to like relieve a big lineup at the record store. And in the meantime, he's told by his boss that he has to stay after work tonight to do inventory. And Jack replies, "I can't stay after work. I have other stuff to do tonight. I'll do any other night, but I need to be out of this store tonight." And he says, "Oh, you're doing inventory or you're losing your job." And he breaks down and just says, "Well, screw you. I quit because you're being unreasonable." Which, I mean, this is kind of like a trope in these like giving putting everything into becoming a musician movies where like the the lead is like sacrificing everything to pursue their art, and sometimes that plot point could come off like they're being stupid, but I think this is fair. I think this is like a relatable amount of like determination to get his job, to get the thing. Because like first of all, like he's not doing this out of nowhere. He's like standing up for himself in this case. Because you don't tell somebody they're working overtime on inventory of all things the day you need them. You got to tell people like a week in advance. That's just common courtesy as a employer. So he's got grounds to quit because that's kind of shitty that you would just drop that on a guy the day of. Just
Mm-hmm.
yeah. On what looks like a busy day too. This isn't like they're doing inventory on a Monday or something. So yeah, he quits his job and yeah, so he has to quit his so yeah, he quits his job and he has to what he had to do that night is he's getting called in to do some guest DJing at a club because the regular DJ called in sick and he's going to use the opportunity to play some of his music, which yeah, okay, I guess. I don't know what DJ etiquette is, so what the DJ etiquette is on you playing some of your music at a job. But yeah, and after he quits, he rolls off on roller skates in to the song of "In the Heart of the City" or whatever by London, and rolls around to the and like delays traffic for a good 4 minutes, whatever the length of the song is. And I mean, he delays traffic. He is just in the middle of the traffic, getting in people's way. He's just clearly being a nuisance. Just, it's so silly. He's apparently in New York, but there's like people that like three women that like roller skate past him wearing a San Francisco t-shirts, which is not where they are. They're going to be there later in the movie, but they're not here now. Yeah, so that's what he's up to, and this is like very 70s kind of. It's not quite we're not quite in the edgy 80s yet. This is their transitionary period. They make lots of references to this being 1982, so that's kind of interesting, very timely. So he gets home where he meets his landlord. I guess it would be what you'd call it. Sam. He had apparently house sat for Sam like a while back, and he just ended up staying and being rent guy, and she's gives him some shit about like quitting his job and that she's always concerned about him and she's just be treating him like a little brother, which you'd think would be preamble to them being getting into a relationship, but no, apparently that's just them
Nope, not at
no,
all.
no, yeah, that's just their actual dynamic, which fair. I mean, we're not, this movie's under no obligation to go by tropes, although it's not like the actual romance in the movie is all that sensical. Like it's weird. This Sam ends up with Caitlyn Jenner's character Ron White, and it's just he's kind of Ron White is just kind of in the movie as just like an excuse to get Caitlyn Jenner in the movie because that was she was a big deal back then because she was like the big American athlete. So at the time anyway, I think her records were just starting to get broken in the 1980. So she was hot shit for a little bit. Yeah, just a weird way of inserting this character into the movie for the potential star power, I guess. Because I mean, Caitlyn Jenner's not proven as an actor at this point. This is one of her sole films. I think she has more credits in whatever. She almost certainly has more credits in. Is she on the Kardashians? I don't know how this works. I don't watch the show.
I know very little about it as
Yeah,
well.
me too. She's yeah, I don't get
I,
it.
I I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. For if I remember or not even if I remember correctly, and you can cut this out if it doesn't make any sense or not. But I believe, yeah, the Kardashians was started by Caitlyn back in the day when they had kind of because there was buzz around them regarding like her Olympics success, but then also something with the what was the big court case? It was we were pretty young when it was out in that. I'm drawing a blank on it here, but it was televised all across.
yeah. I'm looking it up.
Simpson.
Um.
What's his first name?
O.J. Simpson. Is that what you're
O.J.
trying?
Simpson case. Yeah, they had something to. I can't remember what though.
Oh yeah. So
With
she yeah.
with
So she is featured in Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Oh, it's cause
okay.
she was married to Chris Kardashian until from 91 to 2015. So that's a character. So she's one of the people in the Kardashians, I assume.
That
So
makes sense.
that would be it. And I think Kylie and Kendall Jenner, who are in the show, and they're her kids. So yeah, that was a thing. She was in auto racing apparently. Oh, she's running for governor of California in 2021. Is what I meant to. What I was trying to get. What I was trying to recall. She's in a recall election. But yeah, it's just a weird. This movie does have a certain corporate feel to it because the screenwriter producer of this movie, Carr, he did have delusions of this being like a big thing. Sadly, didn't end up happening just because it was bad timing was a good portion of this. But okay, yeah, just looking up the budget to to contextualize this. The budget was somewhere between 13 and 12 million, they only made $2 million on it. The album did better. It got like number 49 in the States and did pretty good in the UK and Australia. But yeah, so yeah, Samantha's a former model who got rich selling makeup, and she's since retired because she made that much money when she was in her 20s, I suppose. We actually see her during the opening sequence like put a mustache on one of her own ads, which is kind of funny. So, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. One interesting thing about this movie is she's going to play Sam is going to play a big role in getting Steve his big break, which is kind of weirdly realistic to how big time media works, is just like having someone in the industry and like they get you a big break because they know to talk to the right people. So it's weirdly honest. This movie's weirdly honest about that. We don't see them go big, but she does get them. She does clearly get them to that point. So yeah, she has some chats with Jack, and we're also introduced to the character of Felipe, who is Sam's neighbor. Felipe's character is the Native American. He dresses in very cartoony Native American outfits, which is, I mean, it's in the end of the day, he is portraying his culture. He is Lakota, and yeah, he's a Lakota Taino. The Lakota is actually sort of like in the Midwest prairies, I think in the Dakotas area. I don't think we have too many up here in Canada, but I think it's vaguely in our geographic area is where they're from. And then Taino is Caribbean natives, and he's actually Felipe is actually from Puerto Rico, so he's like half Lakota, or like part Lakota, part Taino. And that's his gimmick. He walks around and he dresses in loincloths cloths and whatnot, and he works as a go-go dancer. What's the word for it? He works as like a waiter slash go-go dancer at the club that Jack is going to be playing at tonight. And so we're introduced to him. We get some Dr. Pepper product placement. Jack is going to set up, gets ready to do his things. He has conversations. I've gone over this. Oh yeah, so they do the night. They go through the night. He DJs for the club. He's well liked and he does a good job, and he shows like a clear passion for what he does. And that eventually brings us to like after the night happens, Sam has a talk with him and says, "Hey, yeah, I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe you can do this now that I've seen you do it." And she's going to make some calls. She has some issues, but she ends up eventually calling in her ex-husband Paul Sand, played by Steve Waits, who is a record producer at a big record label. So she talks to him and gets him to agree to get her some recording time so that they can get a demo made. And they, in the meantime, they're going to make a demo tape of their own to show around. I may have twisted that around a bit. Sam recruits Felipe, cowboy, the cowboy, police officer, the cop, and the construction worker, and the cowboy, the construction worker, Felipe, and the policeman. So they get that, and they sing a little bit of a song to like test their thing. They have a big backyard practice. Everyone shows up. There's a subplot about Sam's old boss trying to get her back into modeling, which she eventually does manage in order to secure some funds for the soon to be dubbed Village People. So yeah, they do some tests. We're also introduced to Ron White, who is Sam's current boyfriend. This is where this is in this backyard thing. We first get our first sign of some of the underlying themes of the movie. Actually, oh yeah. By the way, there was a funny. There was also a funny, weird scene where this old lady calls Ron White a shithead and robs him.
I like that part.
Yeah, that was a great scene. So I got to bring that up because it's just you get to see Caitlyn Jenner at this point, like just a couple years off of being like one of the biggest Olympic athletes in the world, getting robbed by this little old lady, taking taking her wallet, yeah, the character's wallet, and driving off, sitting backwards on a scooter, and she spends this meeting trying to get the policeman to take his police report. Because the policeman,
I literally spent so long, yeah,
and the policeman's
I spent so long watching that scene where like the basically because that's like when we first meet that character, I believe, is the robbery. It's before we even realize like what kind of like that character's purpose is or how they fit into the storyline. Basically, they're just carrying a cake to go deliver. And when the robbery scene happens, I just love it because there's just so much of me that thinks, like there should be a way to stop it. Like in every ounce of aspect in terms of like, I just really loved it because the old lady literally is like, can barely hold the thing essentially. And it's just like, you can't take her seriously. But at the same time, the character is just like, I'm not risking it.
Yeah, no, she's like,
good.
she's just dangerous enough looking, or she's just like, she's obviously still dangerous enough, but the guy's just like, okay, take my stuff. There's a very brief moment where like she asks what's in the box, and he's just like, a cake, and she's like, all right, I'll let you keep that.
And then she tries to like throw it on his face. She like tips it sideways and tries to spill it.
Yeah. Yeah,
she's like a legit anarchist.
Oh, yeah, she's awful. She's just a hardened criminal. Apparently, this isn't the first time she's done this either. Because when Ron talks to the policeman, he's just like, yeah, that's been going around. So that's a great scene. He's a lawyer. Ron's a lawyer. So that's his thing. But he shows up to this party where they're recording, and he kind of leaves in kind of disgust, which when you take it on its own is like a weird thing. But when you take into the account that this is clearly a mostly gay disco group, it makes a little bit more sense. And like, this is Sam discovering that her boyfriend's a bit homophobic. And there's just like a bunch of these moments in the movie where like, oh, yeah, where you just go like, oh, I see what's going on here. And like clear instances of discrimination happening. And it's just an interesting little subtext that, I mean, this isn't a big brain take. It's pretty easy to realize what's going on. But yeah, good for them trying to point out some absurdities here, because it's everyone in the main group kind of treats them as normal, and everyone kind of gets over their homophobia pretty quickly. But it's just like these 2 or 3 male characters who will not give them the time of day, who are like very skeptical of their cap- of the village people, and like taking them on, because it's apparent, I guess, in this context, just too controversial a thing to do, to like sign gay artists to a major record label, and then eventually the village people just do such a good job at their job that they like get people to go along with them, and just like clear, like some of them, I don't know so much about Ron, but definitely Waits character, he's definitely, you definitely get the vibe that he's like not really all as accepting as he's going to be, and everyone just crawls on back to them after they start being successful. So that's an interesting little thing.
Yeah, it's very much like it brushes them off at the beginning. Like they definitely don't give them the time of day at all, and then it's yeah, and then things happen as it goes on forward in that. But it almost seems too like because I don't know enough about the history, and I guess that they allude to it a little bit about it with the name of the group called the Village People, but it's almost like an area, I guess, in whichever city they're in. What city are they in? Is it New
Oh,
York or no?
yeah, Greenwich Village, which is an area in New York, and it's has a reputation of having a big LGBT community. So
Because
that's
yeah,
why
it's
they're called
almost
the,
like
yeah,
when they go.
which is why they're
Okay,
called
because
the
yeah, it's
Village
almost when
People.
they go to the groups, or not the groups, but like these people they want to get signed from, and that then to them they're just like, well, that's you gotta stop hanging out with the village people is how they word it in the movie before they're even prominently take that on as the name of their band per se.
Yeah, it's almost like you almost get kind of like a vibe, like if like the you like a like closest thing, I mean, you could say this, but like, yeah, no, it's exactly what it is. It's like they're, oh yeah, these guys are okay, they're doing okay, but then you realize that they're living an atypical lifestyle, and then they want to kind of back off. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things. But the village people are just so successful that they kind of just all like come crawling
Steamroll
back.
over that.
Yeah, and they all just have to get involved and help them out, and like it's clearly just like demonstrates like homophobia to be just like the beliefs of a few uh bad old white men. That's just an interesting little version of this. Obviously kind of you could go ahead and say that's like a simplistic portrayal of homophobia, but I mean, for 1980, I mean, are you gonna get, or could you possibly hope for like a full deconstruction of homophobia, especially also in this period of like disco backlash? So there's that. But yeah, no, everyone's very supportive of them. We're introduced to Jack's mom, who's an old Broadway singer, who's very supportive of her son. So that's, she's an interesting character. She's kind of fun at times. She'll play a bit more of a role later, but she's like Steve. Here's the thing: Jack's rich, kind of like he's living on his own, but he can go crawling back to mommy pretty easily. That's just the fact of the matter. And like you can tell, like this guy has connections to Hollywood. He's not like some nobody. You don't normally get that with these rags to riches musical stories. Usually they're just totally from out of nowhere, but no, they're just a bunch of semi well connected people from New York that managed to break in. And you know what? Another thing that kind of I nearly was nervous about is that they'd go through a whole thing about where they like pretend all the village people were straight and give them all girlfriends, which I mean, there's some of that, but it's not nearly as bad as like I had feared. There's some flirting, and like some of the guys dance with women, which is yeah, no, gay people don't dance. That's a silly thing. What since when do gay people dance in clubs with people? That so that's a but yeah, no, they didn't full on like hide the fact they were gay either. Like I think Ray Simpson's character has a girlfriend, but that might just be because Victor had a girlfriend when they were doing the pre-production, so they needed that character in the script. So they might have just done that to save some rewrites. And yeah, I think this character also this show does actually make good use of its female characters, even to the points they like participate in the finale quite a bit. So yeah, this is a very nice diverse cast when you think about it. But yeah, I don't. It's again not as bad as I had feared. So yeah, Ron ditches this party because he's a square, and Samantha gives him a whole scolding about acceptance, which doesn't have anything to do with the reality of the situation. This movie isn't all that subtle. It's just they can't say the words. That's just how it is. They get a recording booth after Samantha. Yeah, this is when Samantha convinces Steve to Paul Sand's character Steve to give him give them recording time and help get them a demo tape. She sort of seduces him, which isn't a great look. This is one of the more uncomfortable plots in the movie. Like she's very much portrayed as using her sex appeal to move their career forwards, which is just like a really weird in a post Me Too landscape. She is, and I think she's maybe there's a definitely indication though that she's doing this unintentionally to a certain extent, because there's a part later where Ron gets jealous and she's gets mad at him for thinking that she's essentially cheating on him. So that's a plot point. Yeah, it's not like a great look, and if you watch it, it's kind of uncomfortable based on how close Steve Waits is trying to get to Samantha. The big reason she had divorced him in the first place was actually not because of this, but it's because he can never be away from a telephone for more than 3 seconds.
That's an accurate statement too. That's not an over exaggeration.
Yeah, no. There's the only scene where he's totally without a phone is when he's on a actual plane, and even then he has like a phone that goes up. And even then he has a phone that goes up to the front of the cockpit. Though I think that's a one way thing, so he can't use it as much.
Yeah.
So yeah, he figures that he can get back together with her if he helps push the music. They get the demo session. They're kind of the big plot of the movie is they're struggling to kind of get money because well, they need to keep these big expensive music producing projects going in order to like get launched. And important thing to note: music producing is a bit more expensive back in the day. Like you can get a lot better audio equipment today than you could back in the 80s. You had to like go to a person with like a big setup in order to get decent audio quality. Ron comes back to apologize to Sam, and this is the start of a very clumsy romance scene where Ron gets some leftovers spilled on him, and they have to Jack and Samantha have to literally take his pants off. Jack has Ron put on a tablecloth around his waist because they're doing some weird thing. And this eventually results in Ron and Sam doing some flirting and them eventually having sex. It's kind of funny because like in the Google Play version of this movie, it's like very staticky over the part where the sex scene happens, which Were they rewinding over and over again? Was this like some hardcore shit that I didn't see? I don't think it was, because no, there's maybe there's some skin shown, but it's less hardcore than the gym scene later in the movie. To be fair,
No, I don't think so.
yeah, I thought they faded to black. It's just a weird coincidence that all that static happened at that moment.
Yep,
Uh,
I'd agree.
so yeah, they're okay. So they do some auditions where they recruit the other two members of the team, with Alex Breeley playing Alex the GI, and Glenn gets recruited as Glenn the Leatherman, who's a great character who just sings Danny Boy. They're doing these auditions at Ron's law office, which is extravagant. He gets shit for it and gets fired, but they do manage to recruit who they need to recruit. We're also introduced to Ron's mom, who's the same category of MILF seems like a strong word, but she's like a very pretty older woman like Samantha, or slightly older woman, I should say. I wouldn't call them old. They're late 30s, but so that's a bit in the movie for whatever reason. I guess to imply that Ron wants a woman who looks like his mom? I guess. What's the joke here?
I have no clue.
So yeah, this it's also, I think his boss also kind of kicks him out because he's having this gay music group in his office, I guess. And yeah, it's also pretty destructive on the office. One of the auditioners sets off a fire alarm, to be fair. So there's that. And this room is filled with what look to be expensive books. Like it's basically a library. Yeah, yeah, he ends up quitting his job after being told he can't do this by his boss. After this, they are head over to the YMCA and Skimpy Epics, and we get a gym montage where they sing YMCA, which is a fun scene.
The best song, one of my all-time favorite ones, and I think many others, but also quite the experience.
Lots of skin showing in this scene from everybody. Everyone is like shirtless the entire time, doing lots of dancing and like weightlifting and swimming. It's something to behold. At this point, we get to their rehearsal, which it goes a bit rough, mostly with the dancing. I think the singing's fine because you need to sell the album, but the dancing is clearly needs work. This is when Steve is properly introduced to the band, and at this point, he's like notices what's going on. He gets really skittish about it. Mind you, they're also, and like the big thing as they're doing this, they're also singing "Liberation." Like I shit you not, just the song "Liberation," which is clearly just about yeah, Steve is clearly getting cold feet about supporting the uppity gays, I guess, to pardon the language. I'm mocking Steve there, but yeah, so he's backing out. But I think he's already signed some paperwork, so they're already kind of signed on. So they need to find a gig to kind of push this over on the edge because they're not getting any support from Steve, which Jack's mother manages to get them because they discussed something to do, but they needed a bunch of money, which they they get a chunk of by Sam signing back on with her modeling agency and doing modeling for Milk, where they do the big milkshake music video. They give whole music videos in this musical. That's the kind of musical this is. Yeah, this is it's decent music video. A lot of dancing happens. They're all in like white outfits. It's kind of interesting. I think it's the cover shot of the
Yeah,
movie
I'd say so.
for the most in some of them. After this, they managed to get a big gig, and they managed to bring Steve along with them to do this. In which point, at which point, Gutenberg's character Jack and his mother managed to negotiate a deal with Steve on the plane ride over. We also got a scene earlier where Ron is angry with Sam for not wearing enough in her modeling shoot. I mean, dude, this is what you got to put up with when you marry a model. You got like they dress in skimpy outfits sometimes. This is if you want to be involved with a literal model, you got to be able to handle that. It's on you, man. Yeah, so that's a funny scene actually. Jack and his mother kind of sort of kidnap Steve cuz Steve's like he's assuming that Sam's going to get on the plane with him and they're going to have like a long plane ride to reconnect, and he's like in a robe. Um and he's just telling his pilot just like, "Hey, as soon as she gets on the door, take off," which is sketchy as hell. Like that's sketchy.
Yep, very sus.
Yep.
Very
And of course,
suspicious.
the second, and then of course, Jack and his mother wander onto the plane, and yeah, they immediately take off. So, jokes on you, sucker. So they now have the opportunity to manipulate the absolute hell out of Steve with a lot of cooking. Steve's mother, Jack's mother, is Jewish and Roman Catholic, so she's brought in a ton of food for them to eat on the plane ride home as they negotiate a big contract, which they managed to do when they arrive in San Francisco. Behind everyone else, I don't know how the private jet gets to the destination last, and the village people who allegedly ride conventional travel take longer. So weird. Sam is also super late too. It was weird. There was an explanation for that. I think she went somewhere else in the meantime to cool off because she's kind of angry with Ron. So yeah, we get to the final set where they're preparing to do their shot. The Ritchie family does a performance first. In the meantime, there's some backstage, and they're starting to get some buzz. Some reporters come to talk. Steve gets really creepy with a reporter, which is, I guess, a sign that his relationship with Sam is over, which is weird. I wasn't asking too much for that. I don't care whether or not he gets screwed. He's a record executive. He exists to screw other people over. I don't feel sympathy for him.
Nope, none at all.
So Sam arrives really late and has a talk with Ron, and they agree to get married. All their conflicts are resolved pretty quickly, but they feel semi-serious at least. But yeah, and then because of the success of the coming success of the band, Ron gets his job back. One of the minor characters, who is the assistant to Sam's modeling manager, quits her job so she can be the village people's official roadie. I don't know how the money works on this because this was set up as a charity event, so a lot of that's not really properly resolved, but whatever. So at this point, they do the title song on a big stage, which looks as if they filmed the concert. I guess it's maybe using all those techniques at least, because we do see the rest of the actors in the shot, but I don't know. It's just there's a certain appeal to that, I suppose. But yeah, it just feels like they're recording a concert.
Very much so. I agree.
And then it's also it feels like a bit of a ending to like a stage musical too, because as they finish the song, all the actresses come on stage and do like a big bow with them, which I thought was nice. Acknowledging those characters because they were all pretty important to the story. So that was kind of interesting. That was kind of nice. So yeah, it was a very Broadway-esque ending, and the film ends pretty much after that. After we get all that, so yeah, that's Can't Stop the Music. I made good time on that actually.
Yeah, we went through this one pretty good,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah, I imagine the next week's episode will be a bit longer. I think I have more notes on that. Yeah, this movie's kind of long though.
Yeah, in all honesty, if we look at how long like some of the other films that we've done have also pushed kind of that 2 hour length, I think the reason why this one is easier to talk about is that it's one of those films where it almost comes off like, well, I guess we talked about that it's kind of like a creating story, like a merging of the group in that, but it doesn't delve super deep into a lot of side plots. It's pretty precise in terms of the plot. Like it takes the length to cover the information, but a lot of that stuff doesn't necessarily affect the major plot points, I'd say.
Yeah, there's maybe 30 seconds of music videos in this, or 30 minutes of music videos in this, which isn't bad because you're coming here to see a musician. It's not always the best for the movie, but it's not something you're gonna disenjoy. The only ones I really thought were way too long was the opening.
Yeah, that one, I'll be honest, I don't know if I made it all the way through or not because I couldn't tell if it was a major part of the plot or if it was just setting up the pre-credit roll.
Yeah, it's also the one. It's also one of the weaker songs too, so you get bored easier.
True.
It's the other ones. It's the Village People. They're a pretty good group, so you're getting a lot of benefits of that. And I like all the characters for the most part. Like I've said, what I don't like about them, but I didn't. I like them pretty well. I think most of them are you can root for them enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jenner's character is a bit weak. She doesn't necessarily need to be there, but what are you gonna do? It's not a perfect movie, but it's all right. Certainly all right for the time. You get a nice little gay rights sub theme in there too. I think they portray it in like a nice way, where like an interesting way, or like portraying homophobia is just this weird thing where like some weirdo comes along and just starts bitching about about your friends and like wanted to randomly ruin your friends' lives. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start persecuting all people named Brandon. It makes and that's it would be a sim. It feels kind of like that would be, like that's the same amount of sense it makes because yeah, no, it's I think it does an interesting job with that. Yeah, you feel good watching it. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is showing them sort of in their prime ish, so that's kind of nice. Yeah, just a bad release cast. They were gonna and they were gonna have more in this movie too. So they had said they had to cut some stuff from this, and I thought it turned out okay still. Because they actually had to cut an entire part of the script because they were gonna do some filming on Fire Island, which they couldn't do. I will take a moment to complain about the Wikipedia page because it constantly dead names Caitlyn Jenner. They do not. Like all you have to do is just say a pre-transition Caitlyn Jenner. Maybe like say pre-transition Caitlyn Jenner 4 years removed from her winning the the men's Olympic gold medal. I don't know. That's it just it's very unnecessary. It's just not a great look. I don't know. Anything else we got to talk about? Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, they doesn't wouldn't take long to put some thought into changing it and making it more accurate.
The costumes are nice. I mean, the Village People has an iconic look, so that's very easy to like. That gives you a good position to start from. So I think it was good, pretty easy to make those looks work, and like to give them like an extra layer of paint to make them extra cinematic. So that's nice. All right. What do you give the movie, Curtis?
Um, where's the Curtis scale? Curtis scale is never really the best scale, but I would say I would give it. I'd give it a 7. I
Yeah.
think I'd give it a solid 7. And in the act that it never really pushed, or changed any bounds from like a cinema perspective or anything like that. But at the same time, it didn't have any major parts. There were smaller things that it could have handled better. But at the same time, you got to realize that it came out in 1980. But in terms of like, yeah, maybe it was a longer watch than it needed to be. But at the same time, it wasn't anything that really revolted me in other things we've watched where I literally had to sit there and ask myself, why am I Why am I in the middle of this? That never crossed my mind. So usually that's a good indicator on whether or not the film is a 7 in my eyes.
I'm giving it a 6.
That's also fair.
Like a high-ish 6 maybe. I just can't quite justify the 7 in my mind.
Yeah, my scales are always usually a little high in that, but I agree with you. If anything, there'd be a better chance if you had to say, nope, don't pick 7, pick higher or lower. I would probably agree with you and go towards the 6 rather than up.
I could maybe justify like a low 7, but that was kind of my point of contention. I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty low 7.
Yeah.
It's still good. Like, you can like movies with 6 out of 10. Like, at 5, I start to feel neutral toward a movie, but I think 6 is kind of nice. The music videos are nice. It's a charismatic act. You can get a lot of mileage out of it. All right. Yeah, I think I told you what was going on next week. We're doing Brokeback Mountain next week. Curtis will be back on the show in October at latest.
Yes, the almighty October.
And we will reveal more about that later. Curtis, where can they find you?
If people want to find me, they can head over to Facebook or YouTube at the Just Playing Universe. That's where I post most of my wacky content and all sorts of goodies, gizmos, and gadgets. And if you are on Twitch, you can find me at Just Plain Cheese. That's the main places.
Yeah, you can find the podcast at Kyle and Cody's called CinemaCast on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find the Twitter at KCCCinemaPod. Leave the 5-star reviews on iTunes. That's one of the big ones. Circulate the links. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week with Brokeback Mountain.
Bye-bye,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.